Kelly Goslin. I am this summer's archivist at the Anglican Diocese of Ontario, and I'm here to present to you the Archives Showcase. Earlier this summer, we discussed the life and times of George OKill Stuart, son of the famous John Stuart who established the Anglican Church in Kingston. George OKill Stuart is famous for his work in constructing our current See Church, St. George's Cathedral in Kingston, and for transforming the landscape of our faith and devotion within the confines of Kingston and our diocese. However, today we are going to be examining a wonderful artifact that actually belonged to the son of George OKill Stuart, George OKill Stuart Jr. And through this, his writing case, we can examine his life as well as the development of legislation and reform within early Canada, particularly Quebec and the Maritimes. George Jr. was born in York, Ontario, current-day Toronto, in 1807. At the time, his father was the headmaster of a grammar school that he had established. However, in the 18-teens, the family moved to Kingston. His father took over his father's position as the incumbent at St. George's Church and began his major building projects. At this time, George Jr. engaged in standard preparatory school in Kingston and then moved to Quebec to continue his education. He articled in law with his uncle, James Stuart, who was actually the Attorney General of Lower Canada. And then, in 1830, he was admitted to the bar of Lower Canada. In 1833, he married Margaret Black Stacey. He entered practice with his uncle James Stuart as a partner in their firm from 1834 to 1838. However, this was dissolved once James Stuart was appointed as the Chief Justice for the Superior Court of Lower Canada. From 1841 to 1843, George OKill Stuart Jr. served as solicitor for the city of Quebec. He was elected as a representative for St. Louis Ward in Quebec City, and he was allowed to join the town council, under which he joined several different programs and different committees that oversaw social reform, public health, and finance. He was noted in particular for his strength in advocating for better social reform and infrastructural changes in Quebec, advocating for increased sanitation, for better roadways, and for heightened accessibility for Quebec residents, both English as well as French. Then, Stuart met with continued success, and in 1846, the City Council of Quebec actually unanimously elected him as the first English-speaking mayor of Quebec City. In 1851, he was elected to the Legislative Assembly of the Province of Canada for Quebec City as an independent Conservative representative. At the time, he was still very popular because he was considered a marriage between the English community of Quebec City and the French community of Quebec City. Through him, there could be mediation through the two, and there was an increased level of unity that could be anticipated for general reform. However, he was bitterly defeated in 1854 in a cloud of libel and accusations and rumors, just whispers, of perjury. However, his reputation was cleaned later in 1857 when he was actually re-elected to the original position. Shortly thereafter, however, he retired from political life and instead pursued his original career in law, which he saw as a more promising avenue for promoting progress and self-development. In 1854, he was named the Queen's Counsel, and he became the Assistant Judge for the Supreme Court of Lower Canada. Prior to that, from 1851 to 1853, he was the bâtonnier, or president, for the Bar of Lower Canada. And it was actually under his direction that we saw reform for the payments of assistant judges and what were considered lower-level municipal solicitors. He was a huge advocate for creating more pay-wage equity in this time period, and was also a huge advocate for hiring younger students and recent graduates to higher level positions in the name of progress and renewal. Then, Stuart served as the director of the St. Maurice Railway from 1857 onwards, still being a huge advocate and really an avid follower of the railway movement throughout Canada. Then he started a law firm with John Murphy, which operated until the early 1870s for approximately 14 years. Then he became assistant to Henry Black, who was a very significant judge in the Vice Admiralty Court of Lower Canada. Stuart had been particularly interested in Admiralty law, and his law firm had had a sizable and extensive maritime clientele. As a result, he brought with him already a heavy amount of research as well as support for that field under Henry Black. Henry Black later died in 1873, at which point Stuart was chosen as his replacement. He served in that function until he passed away in Quebec in 1884. Throughout his life, Stuart published a volume of case reports from the courts of the King's Bench, the Provincial Court of Appeals for Lower Canada, and the Court of Vice Admiralty. He also edited another work looking at maritime policy and maritime criminal cases as means for defining precedents and later developments for both commercial law as well as civic law. With this legacy, rich in politics, in law, and in commerce, we can only imagine what his writing case or his briefcase would have contained over the course of a nearly 50-year-long career that was marked by a broad variety of different endeavors as well as progressions that he made. We can imagine that at one point it would have held vital documents for the development of maritime economy, for the development of Quebec relations, for municipal order, and even for criticizing what would later become one of our more questionable institutions. As a result, we're incredibly fortunate to actually have this in our possession, and with it we can only envision just the degree in which our establishment in Kingston was extended thereafter into some of the greater moments in provincial court life.